Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. Today we have some great things in store. We're going to be talking about colors, specifically colors that are found in the auric field. Later in the show, in our second half of the show, I'll be sharing a tale of a dog from the other side. And then we will be doing an exercise to help you develop your eye for seeing auras. We are amazing and beautiful lights. And for this reason, I start each show with the phrase, "Hello, beautiful lights." I like to think of ourselves as divine sparks breaking off from the divine source and precipitating down through the denser and denser dimensions until we become crystallized and manifested in this physical dimension. We are the leading edge of divine self-expression, and each of us has a unique vibration and intent. As we crystallize in this physical plane, the light of the divine source flows through us and creates a prism of color that we demonstrate through our chakras. The rainbow of spinning energy centers that starts at our base of our spine and runs up to the area over our head. One of the stories in the Christian Bible that delights me is the story of the day of Pentecost, where the people gathered in an upper room to wait and pray for a sign. And what happened is the crown chakra over their heads became so highly charged that it lit up, and it was described as tongues of fire that could be seen over their heads. And as their connection with the source intensified, they began to channel, and they spoke in the tongues of men and angels. And if you can just imagine that, like a room full of people channeling together, the energy must have been really incredible. Auras are defined as a distinctive atmosphere or quality that seems to surround and be generated by a person, place, or thing. And another definition said, a supposed emanation surrounding the body of a living creature, viewed by mystics, spiritualists, and some practitioners of complementary medicine as the essence of the individual, and allegedly discerned by people with special sensibilities. And I have to laugh at that definition. It was definitely written by a skeptic. Informally, the aura is equated with the word vibe, like vibration. It's also used colloquially, and you hear it in phrases such as there's a certain aura about them, to indicate the impact of that individual, such as the aura of respectability or the aura of friendliness. It's also used as an indicator in pathology as a sensation of lights or a current of warm or cold air. And this precedes an attack of a migraine or epilepsy. And I find that particularly interesting because it is actually the colors and symbols and sensations in the aura that foretell of upcoming events in an individual's life. Now, mind you, we have free will at the level of the soul, and we can focus our thoughts, energy, and will toward a particular arena. Energy follows focus, so we can change our world with our thoughts. Some things, however, have been written into our life contract for us to encounter and experience, and there are certain people with whom we have a soul agreement that we will be meeting in this lifetime. But many things are left up to us to choose. Our decision whether or not we're going to be happy or unhappy is both our right and our responsibility. Auras are essentially our psychic energy field. It's the energy that we emit, and it's descriptive of us and expressive of our thoughts, feelings, etc. Some people think them to be sort of oval-shaped, a colored band of sound, light, and vibration. And I see them at that scale and also at a larger scale, and they appear like a torus. If you've ever seen the pictures of those energy donuts, they appear in that shape also around us with a flow of energy that passes through us at the center. The aura is actually a reflection of our true nature at any given moment. It reveals the information about our thoughts, our feelings, what our dreams are, and even other people's wishes for us, positive or negative. It reflects those vibrations. What do I mean by true nature? A true nature is what's left after we discard our superficial behavior. We can be very dishonest with ourselves and become fully conscious or truly natural or even spontaneous. We can become so attached to a way of thinking or fall into a pattern or habit or mannerism that it's actually difficult for us to discover who we are. And we may be very detached from that awareness of our true nature. One way to get an insight into someone's personality is to become aware of their aura, because the specific information that's contained in there will disclose the true nature behind any facade or superficial behavior. Once that truth is seen, as a medium, I can begin to talk soul to soul with that individual. Reading the colors in the aura is not a precise science, and it isn't exactly straightforward. To get an idea of the truth of things or an accurate reading, you have to pay attention not only to the color, but the location that you see the color in, the area that's affected by it, the area that's covered. Sometimes it'll be just a small area, or sometimes it takes up a large portion of someone's auric field. You look at the density of it, how thick it is, how clear it is, and what shade it is. All of these things are indications of what that particular color means for that particular person. Auras are given off by all living things, even plants, rocks, and crystals. A lot of people work with stones, and that's because they emit energy with a special vibration and color. Those colors can be seen by training your eye. They contain an incredibly vast amount of information about someone. It can show us their past, the present, the future. It can reveal their fears and dreams, their aspirations, things that are coming into or leaving their auric field, their energy field, things that are coming into and leaving their life. You can see thought forms, which are almost solid shapes that appear in the auric field. Those ideas can be about ourselves or about others. If you allow them to, the thoughts of other people can actually begin to penetrate your auric field. As a medium, when I was first getting started, I didn't have anything to compare myself to at all. I just sort of did what I did. I was listening to the Hay House Summit, I believe that was in 2014, and medium John Holland and medium John Edwards were having a discussion that day. They were talking about people's expectations when they got a reading. And they said, yeah, it's not like spirit comes up to you and gives you their name, address, and phone number. And they started laughing. Don't recall if it was Mr. Holland or Mr. Edwards, but one of them was saying that the way that he started his readings was by looking at the colors and images that were in the auric field of his sitters. And I thought, oh, I do that. So sometimes if a client is stonewalling me, which doesn't happen very often, it's pretty rare, but on occasion people have read some kind of advice online about not giving anything away during a reading and to just sit silently and not give any indication by gesture or facial expression or word about what's going on for them, sort of like a test of the medium. In those cases, because they're being somewhat resistant, I'll tap into their auric field and start my reading from there. They're not really aware that they can't block the sight. Their energy is talking, even if they aren't. The aura has layers, and I'm going to be talking about that in an upcoming episode of our show. I kind of think of the auric field as a matrix of information. Like a CAT scan, you can kind of train yourself to see its layers. You can see colors, past lives, totems, guides, those in spirit around the individual, mythical creatures. which I guess aren't mythical if people can see them simultaneously. They must be there somewhere, maybe from another dimension. And elementals, the little energies that keep our earth healthy, fairies and divas. And we can see angels and ascended masters and gods and goddesses. There are a lot of interpretations of what the colors mean to people. Without being completely exhaustive, I'm going to give you just a few words associated with each thing. Purple tends to deal with spiritual things and can often be the color of an ascended master or a connection with the divine. It can be the color of imagination, very creative, although orange also is one of our creative chakras. I guess we're creative on all levels, actually. But it can also mean someone who's immature or impractical, depending on the shade you see. But I think of purple just basically as connection to the divine. And if somebody has purple in their aura, I think that they probably pretty much a visionary. They can daydream. Blue is often the color of communication. It also is about balanced existence. An electric blue can kind of take over another color in the aura if a person is receiving or transmitting information telepathically, which I found that kind of cool, electric blue. Blue is also the color of trust and peace, and it can suggest loyalty, integrity, conservatism, and sometimes frigidity if it's a light, icy color. It has things to do with our thyroid as well. I have a guide named Blue Waters, and she has just a particular shade of blue that she shows up with. I've seen her more physical form as a person, and my other guides often will show up just as colors. Turquoise, another beautiful color, can indicate a dynamic quality of being. You find it in the energies of people that are highly energized. Ultra aura can represent powerful healer. It's kind of an iridescent turquoisey blue. The high heart chakra, some people associate it with Jesus. It's often seen in doctors and healers and counselors in the energy field of them. Now, green is a restful color. It's there for balance and growth. I think of it in three things: prosperity, growth, and healing. If it's kind of faint, it might mean that you are either just beginning to heal or in need of healing. If it's a deep color, very deep green and clear, it's often the color of a natural healer. If it's a jade green, which incorporates just a little bit of blue in it, that indicates that you have an ability for deep trance work, which is great for developing your gifts. If it's cloudy or dark in a dense way, it can indicate jealousy. I find it funny that people say green with jealousy, but that's one of the aspects of it. Yellow has become one of my favorite colors because I have a guide named Primrose. Her favorite color is yellow, and it represents joy and freedom. It's a non-attached energy, just joy and contentment. Depending again on the shade, if it's really brilliant, you might be spiritually inspired or be having a spiritual awakening. You might have a playful spirit. Dark yellow probably means you're a student, very grounded but learning. Orange can be strongly associated with creativity. I associate it with holiness. Some Buddhist monks wear the color orange, and I think of it as the color of creation. Red is materialistic thoughts. If it's silty in someone's aura, it can mean that they are suffering an addiction or trying to clear an addiction out of their body. They may have a sort of a sediment in their bodies that is residual. I'm not able to go over every other color, but then again, no one can retain all of that information because it's pretty deep. But I do encourage you to start learning something about the aura colors and their meanings, because once you do that, that gives you the chance to heal and change some of the things that you previously didn't recognize that might be holding you back. Working with your aura and energy fields can be really rewarding, really beneficial. We are comprised of energy, and we're very colorful beings. Not only because we have a mobile and expressive auric field, but we have a series of chakras that form that rainbow of energy centers that starts at the base of our spine and runs up to the area over our head. These also exist on several scales for us. The title, A Tale from the Other Side, sort of rings like some kind of horror story or some kind of spooky something or other, but I don't think of it that way. For me, the stories that I hear and learn from the experiences of people that have passed and the things that they share with me have become really fascinating part of my life. I really treat them as something sacred and special. Not everybody wants to talk to people on the other side, but those that do, that are seeking closure for relationships or to communicate with people and see how they're doing over there, to me, that's the highest honor that they could possibly give me. Everybody's got a different experience when they cross. It's not always the same. What I wanted to do today was to share a story that's a little atypical. I was doing a reading and I had a woman come into my office. When she pulled up, she had 3 large dogs in her van, and she was planning to let them just kind of stay in the van with the windows down. But it was a really hot summer day, and her dogs looked kind of mellow, so I thought, well, let's let them come on in here. So she sat down, and one of the dogs, to my delight, laid down by my feet, and one of them laid between us to the side, and the other one laid down by her feet. And she said something about the dog, saying that she was a rescue. She was kind of a Doberman-looking dog. Said that she had rescued her from an abusive situation and that she was very particular to her. That's why she had chosen to lie down beside her. So we got on into the reading. It was going well, and all of a sudden, the dog transformed in my clairvoyant sight into a Native American man. I had never really thought about animals having past lives as people. My father was born in India, and in Hinduism, some branches view the cattle that roam the streets as sacred because they could be their ancestors. But even growing up that way, it just had never really occurred to me for real, that that would be a possibility. But sure as shooting, there was the dog showing me himself in his past life as a Native American man. He started talking and explaining that he and his owner had fought together side by side. They weren't warriors, but apparently their area was under some unrest. What I had not realized was that it was possible for animals to have been here as humans, which has given me a great deal of thought and has really deepened my animal communication readings into past lives and the reasons that our animals choose us. But for her, this man had lost confidence because they had gone to war together and had suffered tremendously, and they suffered the loss of their village. And so when he transitioned to the other side, he didn't want to come back to Earth because he was frightened that it was just a terrible place to be. So he had chosen to come back with his brother in the village and had come back as a dog so that he could be rescued, so that he could learn that there is actually love and life after disaster. And once he makes his transition as this female dog, he won't be so afraid to come back next time. And that's our tale from the other side. So let's get our psychic knuckles cracking. This week we're going to be talking about seeing the aura. People sort of think that that's kind of something that some people do and some people don't. But I've found so far in the classes and workshops that I've taught that there isn't anyone that hasn't been able to adapt their vision to see something in the auric field. And some are much better than they would have ever imagined and able to see things quite clearly. So I usually start them off with explaining that we take a diffuse gaze. Sometimes when people work in spirit, they think that they have to physically see something, that clairvoyance is actually seeing something, clairaudience is actually hearing something, almost as if it's physical. And that is possible, but it's not as prevalent as hearing it subliminally or subconsciously and learning to tap into that awareness. As you look at someone, if you want to do an exercise and have someone be your guinea pig, you can have them sit against a white wall or drape a white sheet. I've done it both against black and white backgrounds. It works equally well. So either a black or white sheet. Usually if there's color, it kind of confuses things. You have them sit there and have the lighting soft, not so dim that you can't see them and you start seeing transfiguration, which we'll talk about another time, but soft enough that it's not glaring, so it's kind of relaxing, but clear enough that the background still looks basically white. Just pick a spot around that person. Be over 6 inches or so from their ear or something. Just choose one spot. Another place you can look is the middle of the forehead, but you want to do it again with a diffuse focus. You don't want to look at their eyes. And you might ask them to close their eyes so you don't feel as self-conscious and they don't either. What you can do is just kind of stare at that spot for 30, 60 seconds. What's going to happen is you're going to start to think, did I just see red? I think I saw blue. But then you're like trying to adjust your eyes because you think, well, maybe I'm just seeing a halo or something because my eyes are playing tricks on me. But trust what you're seeing. Go ahead and just relax back into it. And again, be careful not to focus your eyes on what you catch, because it's our natural instinct. If we see a little bit of motion or we feel a particular shift in energy, for our eyes to follow and look at that thing. So you want to continue to keep your eyes focused either on the forehead or at that particular spot that you're noticing. And you can actually even close your eyes. Some people see better with their eyes shut, oddly enough. Then just trust the colors that you get. If you're having difficulty, you can try alternating your eyes open and then closing them and then opening them again. I think you have a pretty good chance of seeing that happen. If you wanted to see your own aura, you can do that either through a meditative practice, or you could do that through the same exercise but with a mirror in front of you. Just kind of be prepared. There's also a technique that they call taking a snapshot of an aura. What you do is you concentrate long enough to see the aura, and then you close your eyes. The second that you catch it, then you're going to only see the aura, not the person. You're going to just see the color. There's about 1 or 2 seconds until your photosensitive cells stop vibrating and sending messages to the brain. So if you miss it, you can just start concentrating again. You can test yourself, see what works best for you about closing and opening your eyes. It's really fun, and once you get a little adept at it, you can start doing it when you're in places where you're bored, you're waiting for someone at a table in a restaurant, or you're standing in line or something, and you can start looking and seeing what are they up to. And it's so interesting because the information is there. The general question that people ask about it is, are my eyes playing tricks on me? No, they're not. It's just that you haven't learned to focus your attention that particular way. What's interesting, it's sort of like process of photography, old school photography. It's like you begin to see something, and what you see stays in your mind or your understanding, but then as it goes deeper and deeper, and as you pick up more and more details, just like an emulsion photo, it begins to develop so that you have a total image of what you're seeing. The next step that you might take from feeling the colors that are around is to discern, what does that emotion mean for you? And you could go online and download any number of guides to interpreting colors. There are books available. Just educate yourself on some of the basic meanings of the colors. I advocate doing it from a spiritually intuitive place where you kind of work with your guides. If you see a yellow, instead of looking at the book and going, this means joy, intuition, clairsentience, gut knowing, that you actually feel what that color means to that person. Because it's interesting to be able to see the color, That in itself is interesting, and people are always fascinated, like, what color am I? But that changes moment to moment, and it changes through the course of our life, depending on what's going on for us. It's sort of like saying, what color are the clouds? Well, it depends on what day. But trusting what you see and developing that will give you a great deal of pleasure. And then as you feel around in people's auric fields, you can start to see if you pick up an image of a symbol. It might not come to you in your eyes. It might be sort of a feeling. Some people sense color. Like I said, some people see color better with their eyes shut. It could also be that you're absorbing information differently. Not everybody takes in psychic information the same way. Whatever method works best for you, that's what you should stick to. There are ways to amplify your aura. There are prayers for cleansing your aura, different meditations for affirming different aspects. And the difference between the chakras and the auras are that aura is us. It's our energy field. It's our being. And as we get close to death, it becomes empty and starts to retract, and the colors start to fade. So don't let your aura fade. Express yourself and get out there and be you. Don't be shy. One thing you can do is meditation. Meditation doesn't have to be about clearing your mind. It can be just disciplining your mind to hold a high vibration and maintain a state of relaxed awareness to where you are able to hold yourself in that receptive state between sleep and wake just a little bit longer each day and receive informations. I thought maybe I would read a poem for people because of our choices that we can make in life. And it's one that many people know very well. It's called The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. And we will see you next week for a view of life from a medium's perspective. And remember, without integrity, you have nothing.